You're often referred to as the first cyborg in the world. Would you say that this is an adequate description?
No, because the word cyborg can mean many things and it can define many different types of identity. And also identity is very, there's no first in an identity. I mean, the word exists since 1960 and it meant the union between cybernetics and organism. So the union between cybernetics and organism can be of many kinds. But I see being a cyborg as a sense of identity, identifying as being technology, and this can be a sense of identity can happen to anyone. You don't need to be physically united to technology to identify as a cyborg. You can identify as a cyborg without having any implants.
But the first thing that people see on you is that implant. So how would you describe yourself because of that in 2 sentences?
Well, I have an antenna implant that allows me to extend my perception of reality beyond the visual spectrum. And the antenna is not a wearable, it's a body part, so I see it as an organ and an extension of my senses.
So what do you see with it that we don't?
Well, the antenna allows me to perceive colors, including infrareds and ultraviolets, so colors that go beyond the visual spectrum. Also, there's internet connection, so it allows me to receive colors from other parts of the world or connect to satellites and then sense colors from space. So it allows me to explore the colors from space by connecting the antenna to NASA International Space Station.
So the perception of the world that you have compared to what we see within the visual spectrum, how is it different? What do you know more about the world because you have such a wider spectrum as compared to what we see?
Well, infrared perception allows me to feel if there's movement detectors in a space, for example, so I can tell if the alarms are on or off in a space, in a shop or in a bank. And in many cases they are off, so it's interesting to know that these movement sensors are not working. Ultraviolet perception allows me to know if it's a good day or a bad day to sunbathe. So if I sense there's a high level of ultraviolet, I avoid the sun or I put some extra cream. So extending your perception of reality allows you to feel nature in a greater way. So that's why I see this type of technology as something that can allow us to feel nature in a much more profound way.
So do you believe in some foreseeable future this may become a standard for all of us?
Yeah, I think we as a species have been changing the planet for many thousands of years, and now it's time to change ourselves. Instead of creating artificial light, we should have night vision so that we don't need to change the planet in order to see at night. We should have night vision, and cities should be dark so that we could see at night, or we should be able to regulate our own temperature instead of using heaters and air conditioning. So the more we design ourselves, the less we'll have to design the planet, and I think this is beneficial for the planet and for ourselves as a species.
So if I understand you correctly, this is actually a way of adapting ourselves so we don't have to adapt, or shall I say modify too much the planet around us.
Exactly, so I think that slowly society will see this as ethical and it will be seen as normal to design ourselves, because the more we design ourselves, the less we'll have to change the planet, and that's something that we need to tackle, because we are modifying the planet too much and the consequences are already here. We've destroyed the planet by doing this, and now we have the tools to design ourselves, and this will stop this modification of the planet.
So basically up to now we have been selfish because we haven't been doing anything to ourselves, but in order to make our lives better we have been changing everything around ourselves.
Exactly, so we haven't actually adapted to the planet, we have adapted the planet to ourselves, and this is wrong, and I think that's what will start changing this century. There'll be more people deciding to design themselves, and it will slowly be seen as ethical, and bioethical committees will see it ethical to add new senses and new organs. I see this as a trans-species surgery because it's the addition of senses and organs that are not traditionally human, and now bioethical committees are not accepting these surgeries as ethical, but I think that in the 2020s we will see bioethical committees accepting them as ethical.
How old were you when you got yourself this implant?
Well, I started this project when I was 20 and it was permanently attached in 2004, so since then the antenna is evolving, it's always in evolution. Like technology keeps evolving, so if you have a technological body part, this body part keeps evolving during your life.
Well, that would be my next question. Have you been upgrading this implant during that course of time?
Yeah, the advantage of having cybernetic body parts is that these body parts can keep evolving, so I didn't have internet in my head in 2004. This was an addition. Also, infrared and ultraviolet perception was not included in 2004. So I keep adding more and more
Functionality?
yeah, well,
Spectrum?
more spectrum in this case, yes. And the antenna can also keep evolving. So there's two types of evolution. One is the organ, the body part, and the other one is the sense. And both can keep evolving during life.
What will the next version of, next upgrade of the implant bring? What do you expect to have in the next upgrade?
Well, the antenna should move independently by thought. So if I think left, the antenna should move to the left so that I can sense the colors in the left. Now I need to use my arm to move the antenna, so it should move independently. But I'm adding a new organ this year, which will be between the skin and the bone, and it will be a point of heat that will take 24 hours to do the complete circle around my head. So it's an organ for the sense of time. So I want to have an organ for the sense of time, which will allow me to feel the rotation of the Earth in my head. And I want with this to take Albert Einstein's theory of time relativity into practice and see if I can modify my perception of time if I have an organ for time. So if I want the situation to last longer, I'll make the point of heat go slower or faster. So the aim here is to create time illusions and to create an organ for a sense of time.
So this answer kind of tempted me. Can we expect in some foreseeable future to be able to see through multiple dimensions of time?
Yes, if we had an organ for time, we would be able to create time illusions in the same way that we can create optical illusions because we have an organ for the sense of sight. If you had an organ for the sense of time, you would be able to travel in time, or you would be able to stop or freeze time or make time go a bit faster or slower, because time is a perception, so you could modify this perception. And in the long term, you could also change your perception of age. So if you want to feel that you've lived 300 years, you could do that if you change your perception of time. So your body might be 70 or 80 years old, but your mind might actually feel that you are 200 years old.
Innovations are sometimes met with opposition from the people. When people don't understand something or fear something, they tend to be very much against it. So my question is, have you ever had any unpleasant experience with people seeing you, meeting you, talking to you? Have you had any rough time? Have you had any unpleasant moments because of what you are and what you do?
Yeah, there's a lot of people that see this as something that goes against nature, against humanity, and against God. So I do find a lot of people that are against it, but I strongly feel that it's not. They don't listen properly what we are trying to say. We see that this will help us survive. It will help the planet survive because we won't have to change it so much, and also we see it natural to actually be part of our own evolution. If we look at the history of evolution, we started as being bacteria in the ocean, and then we became another species, and then we lived on trees, and now we call ourselves human. But being human is just temporary. We've not been human all along, and now we have the chance of deciding what species we want to be. So I think it's a good moment that we can actually start deciding what senses and organs we want to have as a species. We shouldn't see it as something bad or unnatural.
You're one of the key speakers of this year's conference, DIGGIT. So what is the main message that you will try to pass to the listeners, to the participants?
Well, that becoming a cyborg does not mean becoming closer to machines. It means becoming closer to nature and to other species. And hopefully they will see that it is ethical to do this. I will talk about why it will change the way we've treated the planet if we start doing so.
We see now that on your personal documents you are portrayed exactly as you look. Have you been met with any opposition with authorities when you appeared with a picture with your implant?
Well, that's when journalists started saying that I was the first cyborg to be officially recognized by a government, was because they thought that so they didn't allow me to renew my passport in 2004, the UK government, because they said that there was an electronic equipment on my photo, and I replied saying that this is not an electronic equipment, this is a body part, and that I'm not wearing an antenna. I have an antenna in the same way that I'm not wearing a nose. I have a nose, and it should be considered an organ, a body part, and they accepted this explanation. So journalists considered this as being the first time a government was accepting technology as a body part or as an organ, And I also stated that I identified as a cyborg, so that's when it started, journalists saying that this could be the first time that the government accepted someone as being a cyborg. So to me it was just a practical thing. I had to renew my passport and I just sent the picture. It was my intention just to renew my passport, but it became this battle with the UK passport office, trying to explain to them that this should be considered a body part.
How long did the battle last?
Months. It took months, so I couldn't travel for many months because I had no passport. But in the end they accepted the explanation in 2004, and then in 2014 it happened again because I had to renew the passport 10 years ago. So yeah, but it's, I think governments need to start thinking about this. There'll be more and more citizens merged with technology, and also people who will identify as being technology, and regulations need to be done, and there need to be some cyborg laws as well.
So can you expect in 2024 there will be no such issues?
I hope so, yes, I hope